right, so welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive with us. And today, we're looking at something that seems pretty basic at first glance.
Yeah.
Talking about your daily routines and hobbies in English.
Right.
But trust me, we're going way beyond the beginner stuff here.
Absolutely.
And the reason we can do that is because we have got this fantastic guide that is aimed at advanced English learners.
It's a great resource.
And I was really impressed by just how deep it goes into all these different aspects of how we talk about our everyday lives.
It's really comprehensive, looking at vocabulary and idioms and grammar and all sorts of things.
So the guide kind of kicks off with this section about daily routines. And one of the things that stood out to me right away was this idea of using really precise verbs.
Oh, yeah.
To describe what you do.
Definitely.
Particularly when it comes to different times of day.
I think that's really important.
Yeah.
You know, instead of just saying, I wake up and have breakfast, you can use more interesting verbs like rise and shine or fuel up. And it really gives the listener a more vivid picture of what you're doing.
And I thought this was a really cool point that the guide made, is that using stronger verbs like that can actually change how people perceive you.
I think that's true.
You know, if you say, I seize the day, instead of I start work.
Yeah.
Especially in a professional setting or something.
Right.
It makes you sound more ambitious and proactive.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
Yeah.
How much meaning can be packed into just one word.
I think that's one of the fascinating things about language is how much nuance there is and how much you can convey.
Yeah, it's like choosing the right tool for the job.
Exactly.
Now, the guide also goes into idioms.
Oh, too.
And I know those can be
tricky.
A little bit tricky for English learners.
That are really valuable.
They are, because, you know, they really help you to sound more natural and fluent.
Absolutely.
More like a native speaker.
Yeah. The guide gave this great example of hits the ground running.
Oh, yeah.
To describe a really busy morning.
I love that one.
Oh, it's so much more expressive than just saying, I started working quickly.
Exactly.
Right.
It gives you that sense of energy and momentum that you wouldn't get from a more literal phrase.
Exactly.
And the guide makes a really good point that mastering idioms is really key to unlocking that next level of fluency. It's about going beyond just understanding the words and really internalizing how native speakers actually use them in conversation.
Okay, so we've got powerful verbs. We've got idiomatic expressions. The guide doesn't stop there.
Of course not.
It also delves into grammar.
And particularly how to use more complex sentence structures.
Yeah.
To describe your routine in a more sophisticated way.
I think that's important.
Yeah. And it's not just about using long sentences for the sake of it.
Yeah.
It's about being able to use those structures to express your ideas with more clarity and nuance.
Clarity and nuance are so important.
Yeah.
When you're trying to communicate effectively
in
another language.
So, for example, the guide talks about using conditional clauses to highlight connections between different parts of your routine. Like saying, if I manage to finish my workout in the morning, then I feel much more energized throughout the day.
Right.
And it's that
if-then structure.
If-then structure.
Really helps to emphasize that cause and effect relationship between the two parts of your routine.
And it sounds so much more polished than just saying, I work out in the morning, I have more energy.
Right.
It adds a level of sophistication to your language.
Absolutely.
And the guide argues that mastering these types of grammatical structures can even help you to think more logically. And express yourself more effectively in English overall.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
So we've covered powerful verbs for specific times of day.
Right.
Idioms to spice things up a little bit.
Yep.
Complex grammar to add that extra layer of sophistication.
And that's just the beginning.
Yeah. I'm really excited to dive into the next section, which is all about hobbies.
Because there's so much potential there to really showcase your personality and interests through language.
Absolutely. All right, so let's move on to hobbies.
Okay.
And what I really liked about this guide was how it encouraged you to think about hobbies as more than just like activities that you do in your free time.
Absolutely.
It really goes deep into how your hobbies can reflect your personal growth. Yes.
Your cultural experiences, even like your values. you know?
It's about connecting those interests
Yeah.
to the bigger picture of who you are.
Totally. And the vocabulary section for hobbies is fantastic.
Yeah, it's really rich.
It's full of words that go beyond basic descriptions, you know, like
what?
foster creativity or broaden horizons or pursue passions.
Those are great examples. And the guide emphasizes that.
Yeah.
Using this kind of vocabulary not only makes your English sound richer, but it can also help you better understand the impact your hobbies have on your life.
Oh, totally. Like if you describe your love of cooking as a way to connect with your cultural heritage, that's so much more powerful than just saying, I like to cook.
Exactly. It adds a whole new layer of meaning.
I love that.
And it can also help you to connect with other people who share similar interests because you're speaking a language that resonates with their own experiences.
Absolutely. Now, the guide also dives into the cultural aspects of hobbies.
Okay.
Highlighting how they can vary widely across different cultures.
Yeah, that's really important to remember.
Right. It's a good reminder that what might be considered a common hobby in one culture could be totally unique or even unheard of in another.
Exactly.
Like the guide mentions how tea ceremonies are a significant cultural hobby in Japan.
Oh, yeah.
And how understanding the rituals and symbolism involved can give you a deeper appreciation for Japanese culture as a whole.
That's a great example.
Right.
And it brings up this really interesting idea of using hobbies as a bridge to connect with people from different backgrounds. Because even if you don't share the same language, you can still find common ground through shared interests.
The guide even suggests like learning a few key phrases related to hobbies in other languages.
Oh, that's a great idea.
You know, like even just a few words can go a long way.
Absolutely.
In showing respect and making a connection.
And it shows that you're making an effort to understand their culture.
Yeah. Now, beyond vocabulary, the guide also encourages you to use more advanced grammar to describe your hobbies in a more nuanced and engaging way.
I think that's a great idea.
And I was really intrigued by the focus on using gerunds and infinitives.
Oh, yeah.
Which I will admit can still kind of trip me up sometimes.
They can be tricky.
Yeah.
But they're so powerful once you master them.
So give me an example.
Sure. So instead of just saying, I like to paint, you could say something like, painting allows me to express my creativity. Or I find painting to be incredibly therapeutic.
Oh, I see the difference.
Yeah. You see how using gerunds and infinitives like that really elevates the description and makes it sound more personal.
Cool.
And the guide gives some fantastic examples of how you can use those structures to talk about the impact your hobbies have on your life, your goals, your overall well-being.
It's all about adding that extra layer of depth and meaning to your conversation.
Exactly.
This guide is really full of great advice.
It is a great resource.
So we've talked about using powerful vocabulary to describe our hobbies, connecting those hobbies to cultural experiences, and even incorporating advanced grammar structures like gerunds and infinitives.
Yeah.
But the guide goes even further.
Really?
And talks about how to actually integrate your routines and hobbies in a way that creates a more balanced and fulfilling life.
So it's this idea of recognizing how those two aspects of your life are interconnected and how they can work together to support your overall well-being.
So the guide suggests that instead of treating routines and hobbies as these separate entities, we should think about how we can weave them together in a way that makes sense for us.
I think that's a great approach.
So for example, if you're someone who thrives on routine, but you also need creative outlets, the guide recommends finding ways to incorporate your hobbies into your daily schedule.
That makes sense.
Even just dedicating like 30 minutes each evening to painting or writing or whatever it is can make a big difference.
I think that's a really good point.
Right. It's about being intentional with your time. And recognizing that hobbies aren't just something you do when you have spare time, but an essential part of a well-rounded life.
Exactly.
And the guide even suggests thinking about how your routines and hobbies might evolve over time.
That's true.
Right.
What works for you now might need to be adjusted as your life changes or as you discover new interests.
Right. It's all about being adaptable and finding that balance that feels right for you.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah.
This is so insightful.
I'm glad you're finding it helpful.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We've talked about using advanced vocabulary and grammar to describe routines and hobbies, connecting those interests to cultural experiences, and even finding ways to integrate them into our lives for greater balance and fulfillment.
It's all about using language
to
create a more meaningful and enriching life.
I feel like we've just scratched the surface here.
Yeah, there's so much more to explore.
But one of the key takeaways for me is really the power of language.
Absolutely.
To connect all these different parts of our lives.
It's about going beyond just listing facts and actually crafting a narrative that reflects who you are.
And the guide makes this really great point. That by mastering the kind of vocabulary and grammar we've been talking about, you can really share your experiences with others in a way that's both engaging and authentic.
And I think that's really important because it allows you to connect with people on a deeper level.
Yeah, think about it. You know when you meet someone new and they ask you about your daily routine or your hobbies? Instead of just giving a generic response, you could really use that as an opportunity to showcase your personality and your command of English.
It's about turning everyday conversations into opportunities for self-expression.
Totally. And the guide even suggests practicing these skills by writing about your routines and hobbies in a journal.
That's a great idea.
Or even creating short videos to share online.
Yeah, I like that.
It's about finding creative ways to apply what you've learned.
Absolutely.
Okay, so to wrap things up.
Yeah.
Let's just recap those key takeaways one more time.
Okay.
We've learned how to elevate our vocabulary and grammar to describe routines and hobbies in a more sophisticated and nuanced way.
Right.
We've explored how those interests can reflect our cultural experiences and our own personal growth. And we've even talked about the importance of integrating routines and hobbies into our lives for greater balance and fulfillment.
It's been a really fascinating discussion.
It has. And I guess the question I'd leave you with is, what stood out to you from all this? How might you use what we've talked about to describe your own life to someone who's completely unfamiliar with your culture?
That's a great question.
I think it's a really interesting challenge. To try to think about how you would explain those everyday things in a way that would resonate with someone from a completely different background.
And remember, it's not about memorizing a script. It's about using those tools to create a genuine connection and share your unique perspective with the world.
Well said.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Keep exploring. Keep practicing. And most importantly, keep having fun with English.
Absolutely.